Curious sighting in Colorado. Could this be a elusive Bigfoot? A recent sighting of a mysterious, tall, hairy figure walking upright in the Colorado wilderness, captured on video by a rafting group. This footage has reignited the long-standing debate about the existence of Bigfoot, a legendary creature known also as Sasquatch. Now let's get deep into this story on this AI podcast.
Okay, so picture this. You're out deep in the wilderness, maybe floating down a river, huge trees all around. And then suddenly, up on a hillside, something emerges from the forest. It's tall, hairy, standing upright. What's the absolute first thing that just snaps into your head?
Well, for anyone who's even remotely interested in unexplained stuff, especially lately, that image, it immediately brings up that one big question. Could it possibly be Bigfoot?
Exactly. And that's precisely where we're diving today, into this really enduring, fascinating legend of Bigfoot, which has been sort of reignited by a brand new alleged sighting.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're focusing on the key details from a specific article that really documented how this new sighting unfolded out in Colorado.
Right. So our mission seems pretty clear. We're going to unpack what this article tells us about this latest event. We'll look at the blurry footage everyone's talking about, consider the skepticism that popped up immediately, and then kind of place it all within the long, very strange history of this mystery. What can this source tell you about what might or might not be lurking out there?
Okay, let's start with the sighting details as laid out in the article. It happened May 24th, up on the upper Colorado River.
Yeah, a group was out whitewater rafting. They were with the Colorado River Expedition, led by a guide, Logan Kirk. Pulled over for a break, I think.
That's right. And someone in the group first spotted something on a hillside, maybe 500 yards off, initially shouted, "Bear."
But Kirk, the guide, he pretty quickly disagreed. He told the source, and this is a key quote, "I think that what they saw wasn't a bear." He said it was not normal, looked where the person pointed, and, well, he saw it too.
And it was emerging from this really dense pine forest, described as a tall, hairy figure. The article specifically highlights Kirk, calling it definitely bipedal, standing upright on two legs.
And here's where it gets, well, frankly, really interesting and fuels so much of the debate. The article points out this moment in the video where the figure seemed to stop and stare, like, directly towards the camera before it vanished. That detail, it's compelling, isn't it?
It really is. It adds this layer of seeming intentionality. It moves it beyond just, an animal wandering by, at least for people who analyze these things. Kirk's immediate reaction, captured right there in the article, that it wasn't a bear. Well, that's often the first logical explanation people jump to.
So as you totally expect, this footage hits the internet and just goes absolutely viral. Millions of views, like almost overnight.
And the reaction, just as the article describes, was immediately split, right down the middle. Which is, let's be honest, pretty typical for these kinds of things.
Yeah, on one side, you got the enthusiasts. They're jumping on it, calling it potentially the clearest evidence yet. You hear that phrase a lot, but it definitely shows the excitement it stirred up.
And then, almost instantly, you had the skeptics pushing back hard, dismissing it, saying, it's just someone in a costume, maybe a hoax, or maybe just a bear standing up for a second. The usual counter-arguments.
Logan Kirk himself, the guide who saw it, he's quoted in the article saying he's still intrigued and open-minded. He apparently still can't definitively say what it was they saw.
What's really interesting, though, is his plan, which the article mentions. He actually intends to go back to that exact spot, on the river, to look for physical traces, footprints, broken branches, anything concrete.
Although the article does note he admits it's tough terrain up there, lots of rocks and stuff, which honestly makes finding clear footprints sound incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible.
And that brings us right back to that classic question the skeptics always raise, and the article touches on it with this footage too. Why does the evidence always seem so blurry, so far away? Even with amazing phone cameras now, these Bigfoot videos consistently have, poor resolution, distance issues, just like this new Colorado one from 500 yards.
It really feels like the central paradox of the whole thing in the digital age. Oh, and speaking of Colorado, the article gives a little local context that's kind of wild. The state has apparently logged over 100 Bigfoot sightings just since March of this year.
Wow, over 100 since March. That density of reports, it certainly suggests the idea of this creature is very much alive in that area, whether that's because of, suggestibility, misidentification, or, something else entirely.
So connecting this specific sighting back to the bigger picture, the legend of Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, as it's known in other traditions, it has roots going way, way back, centuries really. The article notes it's woven into Native American oral histories.
Exactly. The name Sasquatch itself, it comes from the Coast Salish language. It loosely means something like wild man, or maybe hairy man of the forest. These traditional tales often describe this tall, elusive being that lives deep in the woods and, importantly, tries to avoid humans.
But the name we mostly use, Bigfoot, that's much more recent, dates back to 1958, actually. The article mentions this letter in the Humboldt Times newspaper. It described these huge, unexplainable footprints found near Bluff Creek in California. The newspaper guys just coined the term Bigfoot, and, well, it's stuck.
But you really, really can't talk about Bigfoot evidence without bringing up the Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967. The article rightly references it as probably the most iconic piece of alleged proof out there.
Oh yes, that grainy footage, the star of 1,000 late-night debates. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, they were out on horseback near Bluff Creek, same area as the footprints, actually, when they supposedly stumbled upon a creature fitting the description.
Right, Patterson's horse supposedly reared up, got spooked. He jumped off, fumbled for his camera. It was a 16mm camera, I think, and managed to shoot just a few shaky seconds before the figure walked off.
And what that film shows, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is this large bipedal figure just striding across a sandy creek bed. It famously turns its head and upper body slightly towards the camera before it disappears into the trees.
And that short clip, I mean, it's been analyzed frame by painstaking frame for decades now by everyone, scientists, cryptozoologists, Hollywood effects artists, anthropologists, you name it. And the analysis, well, it's really shown just how deep the disagreements run about visual evidence, hoaxes, what you can even tell from fleeting footage.
And the controversy is absolutely central to its whole legacy. Skeptics have always claimed it was faked. The article mentions a guy named Bob Hieronymus who came forward years later claiming he was the one inside a suit in that film.
But, and the article makes sure to include this counterpoint, Bob Gimlin, who's still alive, strongly denies it was a hoax. He absolutely maintains they saw something real unexplained that day.
Yeah.
So you have this direct conflict in testimony, which is a big part of why the film is still so heavily debated.
So whether you lean towards belief or disbelief, the one thing this article really underscores is that this whole legend, Bigfoot, it just refuses to fade. Every new sighting, like this Colorado one, it just seems to, I don't know, deepen the mystery, reignite the arguments, and add another slightly fuzzy picture to the global collection.
Yeah, and the same core questions that people were asking back in the 60s and 70s are being asked all over again about this Colorado footage. What exactly was that thing? Is the truth out there, like the article puts it? And maybe the most frustrating question of all, are we ever going to get that definitive, undeniable proof everyone seems to be waiting for?
So, yeah, this Colorado sighting becomes the latest chapter, doesn't it, in this incredibly long-running mystery. It brings all the classic questions, the classic debates, and, let's be honest, the classic blurry video right back to the forefront.
It really does. It leaves this creature, whatever it might be, still sort of lurking in that space between folklore and potential realities, still 500 yards away and just a bit out of focus.
And maybe that leaves us with a final thought for you, listening right now. What does it really say about us, about our world, that this legend persists so powerfully? We're still captivated, still arguing, still looking, even when the newest potential evidence looks, well, remarkably like the evidence from decades ago. Given all that, what would it truly, honestly take for you to be convinced that Bigfoot is
Could
real?
this Colorado sighting finally be the real evidence of Bigfoot's existence? Commented. Thanks.